Hello, Tom here, gunsmith at Promag Archangel Manufacturing. Today I'm going to go over the differences between the two AK kits we have. We have two kits, one fitting the Chinese and Russian version AK with the slightly shorter forend and handguard. And then we have the Yugoslavian / PAP and NPAP forend, which is slightly longer by about a ½ an inch longer. I will be demonstrating probably on the PAP here on where to fit and how to fit it. Both rifles get fit the same way. One is just simply longer than the other one. The handguards, forend and handguard, go on and are retained identical. Our handguards come with, there's a couple features. One feature is the polymer handguard has a steel insert that is molded into the forend right here, and that helps heat out from the barrel instead of just being directly on the polymer. So you don't have that thin area there that's polymer if you're overheating your rifle melting out. The other thing we've done is put an anodized aluminum heat shield inside that snaps in place there. I bring that up because you may need to remove this heat shield, and I don't know if you can see that or not on the video, but there are tabs, two in the rear and two in the front. This heat shield is squished into the handguard, and to remove it, you simply pull in and pop it out sideways and then pull the other side out and it comes right on out. I'll demonstrate that right now. To demonstrate that, to remove the heat shield, you just pull in on the edge of the heat shield and the little tabs will pop out of the heat shield, out of the forend, and then do the same thing on the other side and lift up on it and it'll come right on out, and you can do whatever you need, whatever reason you need to pull it out in the first place. Normal installation, you will not usually need to take that out. If you are installing this with a disc sander or a belt sander, taking this heat shield out makes it a lot easier because you can lay this on the belt and sand on it. You can also go against your sanding disc and push it in there, and it's a nice square surface. So taking this out may be a necessity if you're fitting it that way. The other difference, we make a Chinese version buttstock, a Russian Chinese version with a tang coming out here. This is for a stamped receiver AK, not the milled. And then we recently have introduced the PAP. The back half of them is identical. The only difference is where it mates up with the receiver. The installation is very similar, other than with the PAP, the bolt goes in from the inside and goes out into the stock. And with the Russian Chinese, the screws are coming in from the top. You just basically, the screws go down into the polymer. There's holes that drill down here, and I'll show that later on when we fit this, but they're essentially the same from that point back. Once you're stripped down to this point here, and you're ready to put your new handguard on, like I demonstrated before, if you pull that heat shield out of there, it's going to be out of your way for doing any sanding on a disc sander or a belt sander. Grab this other handguard here. As you can see, this here handguard has been sanded and fit, and you can see the metal that's kind of showing out of there versus this one over here. It's obviously more pronounced. This was sanded down in length to get the ferrule to fit onto the rifle. So what you do is you start by putting the handguard in the rifle without the heat shield, and then slide your ferrule back, and you can check for fit. These are made oversized because AKs have a huge variation in tolerances. Some rifles will have very little removed off the end here, off of this part right here. You'll just take a little tiny bit off there and it'll fit just fine. Others you'll have to sand for days, it seems like, to get it to fit in there. But we have accommodated for that. We've made them a little bit big intentionally so you can make it fit on just about every rifle there is. So you've confirmed that this is not going to fit in here. You have to determine how much you need to file off of the rifle at this point. What I've found a nice little trick to that is to slide that ferrule back and get it locked in place. There's a half circle machined in the barrel, and then there's this rotating pin here that has a half circle machined in it. And you have to line the two up, and I'm fighting with it at the moment. There we go. And then it'll rotate around and lock in place. What we're measuring is the distance from the inside that ferrule to the edge of the receiver. So for the flat part, which is the inside of the other side of this piece of metal right here, to the edge of here. I found a little trick is to take a pencil, stick it on the inside there, and push it against with your finger. And you can take something, an awl, a knife, or whatever, and mark right on the edge of the pencil, right on the edge of the receiver. If you put a mark on your pencil, now you know where that mark is exactly the length that this handguard needs to be. So then to transfer that information to your handguard, you want to measure from the back edge, because that's going to be right on the receiver right there, forward to this tongue right here. So if you put this pencil along here, line it up with the back edge, and then take your pencil or awl or whatever you're using to make your marks, make sure you're lined up perfectly with the back edge there, and then find your mark up here in the front and transfer that onto the tongue right here. So if that's maybe a 1/16 of an inch, now you know exactly how far it is there. Again, don't take it all off at once. Don't go, if you know you need to take a 1/16 of an inch off there, go just slightly under, try it and fit it, and then take a little bit off and custom fit it so you don't have a loose handguard. Once you sand a little bit off there and then get the tongue fitting, get this ferrule on there, and once you get it to close, a little bit of tension is good. A plastic mallet works really good to tap that down. Sometimes it gets really tight and you need to tap them down. Once you have that ferrule fit, the handguard ferrule fit, and you got this handguard sitting up on there, obviously this one's not going to fit because it has not been fit yet. Once you get it to this point, then you work on the forend. Now, when you work on the forend, it has exactly the same problem, if you will, the same fitting purpose or places. The front here and the back here. Now, something I like to do is try to line up my slots here. Different countries and different manufacturers of AKs will put these ferrules, these little ferrules here are spot welded onto the tube. They can be shifted forward or backward depending on the manufacturer. So what I tend to do is, a lot of them will just go right on. These are actually more of a much more common, much easier fit than the handguard itself. A note that I'd like to bring up, inside the handguard, there is a word in here that says front. That goes to the front of the rifle. When you put it on the front of the rifle, that's the rear of the rifle, you put it on 180 degrees out, push the ferrules down into there, or I should say the gas tube down into there, and then you rotate it. A lot of the factory handguards have a metal retaining ring. It's not a requirement to have that retaining ring in there. Some of them do, some of them don't. If you don't have it, you don't need to worry about it. It'll retain in there. We've made these legs a little bit oversized and a little bit over in length to put pressure on the lower handguard to hold it in place so you don't get any slop or clattering between the two parts. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other handguard back on there, since it's already fit. So once you get your handguard, once you get your forend on there and you're going to put your handguard on, you're going to want to go in here and slide it down in there. Obviously this one's been fit, so it drops right in place. Let's try to put one of the other ones on there and see where that ends up. So length is okay. But it won't close. It's too much on there. There's too much length at the bottom of these three little legs sticking down. Still won't go down. You know that you're going to have to take material off the bottom of those legs. So go ahead and remove it, back off the rifle, and you're going to take your upper handguard, and this applies for either the smooth handguard or the Picatinny handguard. They both fit the same way. One just has a Picatinny rail on it. You take this handguard, and there's by far the easiest way is a belt sander. If you've got a belt sander, even a portable hand belt sander, if you have access to one, utilize a belt sander. It makes it a lot faster. You basically just put it on the belt sander and take a little bit off of it and then test it. A little bit of time, test and fit. If you don't have access to a belt sander and you can't get access, get a sheet of paper, some 150 or 180 grit sandpaper, lay it on your table, hold the sandpaper and push it away from you like that, turning it, cross sanding, and that'll remove material right off those legs very uniformly. And sand a little ways, test it for fit. Again, you want the relationship between the upper and lower part to be tight. You want to have to put pressure down onto it, so when you lock it in place, these two are not loose and moving around on you and having slop back and forth. So go slow, take a little bit of time, try it, take a little bit off, and try it and fit. Once you get it down and get it fit tight, it'll be a perfect fit to the rifle, and you won't have any clatter, and it'll be a well-fit handguard. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this back with the other one. Okay, so moving on to the buttstock. The PAP has a center screw, unlike the Russian and Chinese. The Russian and Chinese are through the top, and the PAP is screwed in from the buttstock on the original buttstock. The original buttstock has a screw coming in from the rear versus through the top. Our buttstock was designed to utilize a 1/4 20 inch and 5/8 inch screw from the inside of the receiver, coming in from inside here, going in and through into a steel insert in the buttstock extension itself. So in order to put this buttstock on, I'm going to go ahead and take this one off. So I like to use these long Allen wrenches. You can get up here and turn it. And just unscrew the cap screw, and then hopefully it'll drop right out of there for me. And there's your 1/4 20 inch and 5/8 inch cap screw. So now to fit a new stock, since this was already fitted on there, I have a new receiver extension for a PAP. The PAPs are actually pretty darn close to each other as far as fit, as far as the tolerances on the receiver extension here, or I should say trunnion, closer than most other AKs. So what you need to do is you get a mallet, not a rubber mallet's fine also, good size rubber mallet, and you take the receiver extension and stick it into the back of the receiver. Now, they go in, this one here actually fits really well. Some of them take a little bit more, and you might need to stand the muzzle on, say, a shoe, your tip of your shoe, or on the carpet or whatnot, and then when you got it down in front of you there, you can take your mallet and tap the extension, and it'll drive the extension down into there. I have not yet found a PAP that is so tight that we have to remove material, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. If you have one, if you find that your rifle won't accept this and you smacked it with a mallet, it won't go in, you'll be able to look right here. There's a small little boss right there. It's a fitment boss. And when you do that, you can see a little bit of shiny or shine mark or upset material, and that's where the material needs to be removed. If you have one that it won't go into, it's going to be very upset right there, and the polymer will be pulled up or dented in. And there's another one that's matching on the other side. You'll need to go in there with a knife or a file and just take a little bit off at a time and repeat what I just showed you on the fitting. If it's top to bottom thickness, then you can take a little bit of material off the bottom There's also a fitment boss right there. Also, you'll be able to see the little edge right there, but it's the full width of it. Again, you just take a little bit, a couple file strokes, or scrape it with a knife to fit that. The paps are really good. They're very close in tolerance, so you probably will not find that. But if you do, that is how you do it. So once you've got that stock extension in there, pressed in place, you'll take your bolt that's included with it, stick it, back up just a little bit here. When you get the rifle from the factory, most of them have, or all the ones I've seen, have the wood stock on them, and there's a large bolt coming in from the back end underneath the butt pad, screwed into the trunnion itself. It's a threaded hole. This bolt will fit through that threaded hole. It comes from the inside out. So you'll install that, then you can stand it up and drop the bolt in place. It'll drop right in the hole, goes right through there. Then take your long Allen wrench. A short Allen wrench works just fine. It's just a little bit more tedious because you have to sit there and turn it like that. And the long ones with the ball end on them make this a much quicker process. Just put it in there and get it turned, got it in place, and you got it done. So to disassemble this to get it ready to install in the rifle, you're going to want to pull forward on the cap here. It pops forward and pull all the way down, and you can pull your receiver extension out. Sometimes you have to pull really good on there because it's secure. And set this to the side. You have your cheek riser adjustment right here. Pushes in, adjusts it. If you simply push all the way down to the bottom and lift the cheek riser off, now it's ready to assemble on the rifle like I just demonstrated. Obviously this is a Russian Chinese version, but it comes apart the same way on both of them. Once you have it apart to this point, you can put it in your rifle, tap it in place, do whatever fittings necessary, and then to reassemble it, you simply take your cheek riser and your cheek riser adjustment button, line up the two pegs, and push them down. Push it all the way down, and you'll find the little notches and it'll lock in place. Then once you go to reassemble it, these two little ears here line up in this slot, and the T goes into the pocket. So you just set it up on there and slide it in place. Once it's on the rifle, you'll be sliding it onto the rifle and then lock it in place. Then you're assembled. Some notes on the grips. AK grips there are some variances in AKs and their grips. Most AKs are flat on the bottom with no protrusion sticking down. Some AKs will have a piece of sheet metal that is riveted on or welded on right underneath the trigger guard, certain models. Our grip will fit most of them, but may require some fitting, some relieving of the material in here to clearance that sheet metal pad or the rivets. Sometimes they'll put rivets in here for various reasons, options on the different models. One more thing is the T-nut that the grip screws into varies in length on different models. There are some really long versions out there that may require this pocket being cut a little bit deeper. They're not overly common, but every once in a while you'll find one that the grip's T-nut is really long, and you can either relieve this pocket, or you can find another one. They're readily available online. It's the standard Russian Chinese version, which is a standard length, which covers most of them, and you don't even have to grind on it. And they're only a few dollars a piece usually when you find them, when you get them offline. So now I'm going to get into how to fit a Russian Chinese type buttstock receiver extension. Same takedown. These come apart with screws to the top. With our buttstock, they include new screws. I recommend using the new screws. Some guys have chosen to use their existing screws, and I will show you in just a minute. Generally the Russian and Chinese screws have huge shanks on them and real coarse threads. You can take a look at that screw there. While it works, it may not be the best for the polymer, the best bite, if you will. You'll get a little bag like this with the screws in it that come with your stock. And you can see the difference in the thread pitch and the size of the screw. Ours has a Phillips head in it, so you get a little bit cleaner look and a little bit better fit. You don't get the stripped heads on the screws as easily. So we'll go ahead and finish taking this apart. So now we've got the buttstock screws out. We can just wiggle and pull out the old buttstock. You can see the tongues. The tongue on the stock are very similar. Now we're going to go ahead and fit this thing to it. This one's never been in this stock, so I don't have any idea how tight it'll fit or how loose it'll fit. I can see right away, when you push it in for the first time, you're going to see it curl off. I just flipped out that curl right there of polymer, which is fine. Let's see what the other side did. There's one right there. That's basically the plastic that's oversized scraping off on the inside of the receiver itself. So we'll go ahead and push it in the rest of the way. If it won't go in, again, get your little polymer hammer, rubber mallet, and drive it in. If it will not drive in, if it's too tight, you're going to have to remove material. Now here is the curl that it scraped off of the stock, of the extension. Go ahead and pull it back out. And you can see, get one out here that hasn't been ran in there yet. If you look at the difference between here and here, you can see how it scraped material off on that. It did the same thing on both sides. So once we've done that and driven it into the receiver like that, obviously you want to remove any of the burrs and get them out of there. There's no reason for it to be in there. Press it back in there. The rear trunnion on rifles are made slightly different between countries. The cut right here, I'm going to pull this trunnion out, or this out of the trunnion to show. This radius right here varies. Sometimes this one here is a real small radius. Our stock is designed with a more square corner here to accommodate all the different radiuses. You basically go in here and you file or scrape this radius to match the rifle itself. That way you get the tightest, most clean install. There is extra material in this corner to fit it to your rifle versus going in here and just relieving it and having a big gap there and it not looking as professionally done as it could be. So what you want to do is get it in there, take a look at the corner and see the difference in the radius between the stock extension and the trunnion. And you go back in there, we take it back out. What I found that works really well is to take your receiver extension, set it on the table, take a pocket knife, and just simply scratch or scrape that radius right there into the radius you want. You can also use a file. A small file works really well, but you continually cut that and fit it a little bit at a time until you get a perfect fit. You'll know it's right when you stick it in there. You tap it in place, and you end up with no gap or very, very minimal gap. And this corner is nestled up into the other corner there, perfectly fit in there. Once you get it to that point, meaning the receiver extension is all the way forward is where you want it, and it's up against the bottom of the trunnion is up, the trunnion is up against the bottom of the stock here, where it's supposed to be. Take a pencil and draw around the circles, draw around the bottom of the holes. So now you know exactly where the holes go. There's two ways to do this. If you're not comfortable drilling through while it's on your rifle, you can simply draw around with a pencil like I just demonstrated, then pull the receiver extension off and then drill it off of the rifle. If you're not too concerned about that and you feel comfortable enough, you can just drill right in right now. Now, when you drill these holes, the hole you're going to drill is to fit this screw, not this hole. So that means the hole that's going in here is going to be considerably smaller than the actual hole there. It's got an oval head screw in it, and the hole is actually bigger than the screw itself. So you're going to need to center that screw in there. Or I should say the hole is going to need to be centered in that. The hole you're going to drill is need to be centered in the hole in the trunnion. If you drill the hole that off center, if you drill it towards the front, it's going to push the stock out. You get that right? Yeah. Drill it towards the front, it's going to push the stock out because it'll push against the front of the hole and press the stock out. So you're going to want to get, what I generally do is I put it in and I drill one of the two holes and I get it as dead centered as I can and run the screw in. And then I'll do the other one after that. Run the screw in one of them and then drill the other hole. That gives you some adjustment leeway. If you get it a little bit off, you can pull that screw back out and do the front one, get that one right, and then put the back one back in, or whichever way you go. And sometimes you can kind of fudge it and get it to where it works if you don't get it right the first time. Then it's the same reassembly as the PAP. Put the buttstock back on it, just like we did with the PAP, and you're good to go. And there you have a fully assembled PAP. Now, since you've completely disassembled the rifle, you want to make sure that it functions. Cycle it back and forth. When you go to the range, make sure that it is completely operational. Don't go load a full magazine in the thing. If you're only doing this for the first time, put 1 or 2 rounds in it and test fire it, instead of putting a full 30-round magazine in the thing and then going down and wondering why it ran away from you. It's always a good idea to test fire with 1 or 2 rounds in it beforehand. If you're more versed on the AK, your experience level will dictate your gunsmithing. And that pretty much sums up the AK47, both the Russian and Chinese, and the PAP. One thing I would like to mention is the PAP kit, or the PAP buttstock, only fits the PAP. It does not fit the actual Yugoslavian. Some of the Yugoslavian rifles take the Russian Chinese type extension. You'll have to figure out with your particular rifle, does it have this type or does it have an InPAP or PAP type buttstock? Whereas the Yugoslavian rifles, to my knowledge, all have the longer handguard. So you have a variance in the rear on the Yugos, but the front ends are usually all the same length. They're all the longer one. The Chinese and Russian are all this style with the shorter handguard and forend. That brings us to a conclusion with the AK installation and guide to what fits what. If you have any further questions, please contact us, give us a call, or get us on Facebook at Archangel Manufacturing, or on our website at archangelmanufacturing.com.